So all right. So on this very chilly January Thursday morning, we've got basketball, we got baseball, we got football, and all different types of conversations with all of them. And the football conversation.
No hockey?
Well, yeah. I mean, not really. No.
Oh,
no.
so.
I mean, nobody played last night, right?
No. But I don't know. Anyway,
No, I'm sure you and CeeLo will do a nice little 4-minute, suck the air out of the building and just talk about guys no one's ever heard of back and forth while I sit here and die inside. So you'll get it out a little bit later.
Uro Vakanainen.
Exactly. But the football conversation is generally around the Jets in this search. And, I said yesterday, if you looked at the Mike McCarthy resume and took Mike McCarthy's face and name off of it, that people would be like, man, we got to go and hire that coach. I mean, look at the experience. Look how many playoff appearances he's had. He's won a Super Bowl, gone 2 different places. His record is great. He's won a bunch of playoff games. But the fact that it's him, like everybody's like, this guy's a doofus. There's just no way we can hire him.
I don't think he's a doofus, but I would say I know you
people seem to think.
I know, but I'm just saying I would push up against that. But I would say that he and Mike Tomlin's records are very similar.
That is true.
And he beat Mike Tomlin in a Super Bowl.
That is true.
I mean, but that was, this is like 20 years ago. I mean, none of it matters. I mean, what matters now is in real time the perception that people have about each of these coaches. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you're thinking that your franchise is stale. You don't like the coach anymore. You're tired of the press conferences. However, if you are a fan of one of the other 31 teams, you're thinking you'd love to have Mike Tomlin as your head coach because we all have this perception about him and about that organization that they're all winners. And that is what we see, but that may not be what the Pittsburgh Steelers fan sees. What I understand about this Jet hiring cycle right now is that Woody's making the decision. Woody is making the decision.
Well, I mean, who else would?
Well, I mean, there's
no GM right now.
I know there's usually a collaboration. There's usually an understanding. You sit down, you talk to a GM, and you sit and you say, okay, who could you work with? Could you work with this guy? Could you do this? Could you do that? And, Woody's trying to find the match made in heaven, I guess. But the reason it's taking so long and the reason that they're interviewing so many people is because he's being demanding. And he wants to get as many opinions and
except guys who have won Super Bowls before, because they're not talking to Pete Carroll, Mike McCarthy, or John Gruden. But everybody else, it's really amazing when you put together a list and then there's 3 guys out there. I'm not saying that you have to hire these guys, but to have that many interviews and then not bring those guys in. And then I agree that Ben Johnson's not taking the Jet job. I've said that for months. But at least request him, get him in the building. He's the preeminent offensive mind in football right now. Pick his brain a little bit. See what he's doing right. Ask certain questions that could help the organization. It just shows you that, for the most part, they don't know what they're doing again. And that's what it feels like.
Well, and the other thing to remember, so this 33rd team led by Mike Tannenbaum is kind of putting these people together with the Jets. And I would also say that, the agents behind the scenes are always working. I think one of the reasons Mike Locksley, the head coach at the University of Maryland, got an interview was because that was a favor for the agent and probably a little bit of a favor for Mike to show the University of Maryland that Mike, could leave at any time. And I'm sure Mike's feeling a lot of pressure because it hasn't gone well for the University of Maryland football team over the last 3 to 4 years. Now, and I don't suspect that it's going to get any better. He can recruit as much as he wants, but his team becomes a development ground for Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, teams that have a lot more money, although supposedly they'll have the same amount of money and be able to share it with their athletes moving forward because of that lawsuit that was finally came to an end. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I look at this and I'm thinking, to me, it's more and more, it feels like to me it's Aaron Glenn. It does, because Aaron obviously is still coaching. This team could go to the Super Bowl. I know that there was some thought that none of these teams should be able to hire anybody until the Super Bowl was over. You know what I mean? And I think that from a coaching perspective, that would be the fairest way to go about this in terms of the hiring cycle. But, obviously Mike Vrabel is already with the New England Patriots. They knew who they wanted, and they went after him. Screw all the rules, screw all the protocols. We don't care. We'll take heat for 3 or 4 days about, sham interviews with Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton to meet the Rooney Rule, and then we're going to go out and get our guy. The sham interview part of it, that's up to the players and and the coaches when they come down to whether or not they want to take the interviews. But the immediacy and the quickness at which Bob Kraft and Jonathan Kraft responded in this particular situation was amazing to me. That's what I'd like to see the Jets do, but they can't figure out who they want.
Well, if it is Aaron Glenn, and that's a first-time head coach, again, who was a coordinator, understand we like Aaron. He was here. He was a former teammate of yours. I can't really say a bad word about him, but a first-time head coach in that building with the Jets, again, is a terrible idea.
The only negative word you can say is inexperienced when it comes to head coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, for months, I mean, we even said it before they hired Rob Saleh that they needed somebody who had experience to come in and stabilize things. And they ended up going with Rob Saleh. But when they fired Rob Saleh, the next head coach has got to be a guy with experience and walks in that building. The buck stops there. If they end up hiring Aaron Glenn, that's the exact opposite of what we were talking about.
I'm just trying to think. So we've been through, at least this show has been through Eric Mangini, Let's Get Brett, Eric Mangini, then to Rex Ryan to Adam Gase.
Todd Bowles, you missed.
I mean, Todd Bowles, then Todd Bowles to Adam Gase.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Gase, then to
Rob Saleh.
So we've been through all of that.
Yep.
We took this job I took this job in 2007. So Mangini 2006 to 2008, Rex Ryan 2009 and 2014, Bowles 2015 to 2018, Gase 2019 2020, Robert Saleh 21 to 24, Jeff Ulbrich 24 to now. So Jeff was on that list too. So that's 7 coaches. 7 coaches in the 18 years that I've been here.
And then do the Giants have, almost as many? Not quite.
Yeah, so Tom Coughlin was the coach that was here when we started.
McAdoo, Shermer.
Well, Spagnuolo was in there as a interim, right?
Yes. But there you go. McAdoo, Spagnuolo, Shermer, Judge, Daboll. So there's 5 guys there. 7 for the Jets, 5 for the Giants.
Well, what they don't have on there is, they don't have Tom Coughlin on there because Tom Coughlin was the coach when we took over here.
Yeah, so
6.
So 6.
13
guys.
13 guys in 18 years.
Yeah, for both of the teams.
And neither one of them has had a significant presence until, I guess you could say, this year. It's amazing. We started this show. Kurt Warner was the starting quarterback. I feel like. No, he wasn't.
No, Eli Manning.
That's right. Eli Manning was the starter. But Kurt Warner had started with Eli Manning during Eli Manning's rookie year.
Yeah, it was 2004.
Right. That's right.
So, yeah, not a lot of great memories there, but you do have 2 Super Bowls in that time. 7-11 with the Giants, as you know.
Right. So it looks like Woody's the one that's going to be making this decision. And if I had to guess right now, I think it's going to be Aaron Glenn.
What about the GM?
That's a whole. It could be. I don't know, man.
Did they interview Ray Agnew from the Lions? I don't think I saw that because he's a guy that I think was coveted coming out of that organization. That would sort of be like the Borgonzi Nagy thing. If you had, let's see, I don't see him on there. Agnew.
He's not on there.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's anybody else in there that Aaron Glenn knows really well.
So that Chris Spielman on there, the special assistant to the owner, CEO of the Lions, that's the player, Chris Spielman.
Right. That's also the brother of the guy who's in charge of
Rick Spielman.
Right. He's
exactly.
finding candidates.
Yeah.
So there's no shock that he found his way to that building.
It's interesting.
Also, Joey Tannenbaum.
An interesting name on there was that Ray Farmer because he's with the Rams. And the Rams seem to be a pretty well-oiled machine when it comes to running a football team.
Well, he was already a GM with the Cleveland Browns, Ray Farmer.
Anybody who goes through the Cleveland Browns, I think, is scarred for life. Don't you think?
Same thing with the Jets. I mean, I've said this a million times. If you go to the Browns or you go to the Jets, you're a smart person. You leave with a lobotomy, with an NFL lobotomy. They cut out a piece of your brain, and then you're gone. And, you hope to rebuild it back up at some point, but not a lot of people get those opportunities. It's not like any of these guys who have left the Jets as head coaches Or general managers have gone and done a lot of other stuff. Rex went to Buffalo and failed. Mangini went to Cleveland and failed.
Well, he went from Jets to the Cleveland. I mean,
Yeah.
I want Jets Cardinals.
I mean, I guess you could say Todd Bowles a little bit of success after.
But what happened with him is he got under Bruce Arians,
yep.
and Tom Brady was down there, and he was a great defense coordinator, which I think we all think he was and still is. I think he still is calling the defensive plays down there. But, at least he's had a presence at quarterback since he left the Jets.
Yeah, but it's just if you're a smart guy, you end up going to Cleveland, you end up coming and being a part of a Jets organization, you somehow get dumber. And then you just get into the blender, get spit out, and that's the end of it. And if you're a first-time head coach, first-time GM, it's going to happen again.
Yeah, Mike
I just
Tannenbaum
can't
left
believe
the
they're going
Jets
to do
and
it
went
again.
to the Dolphins, and then he's done.
Yeah. I cannot believe they're going to do that again. Just another first-time head coach. If they go that way, and GM, it's just a different place. You can't, especially now. Aaron Glenn knows the Jets organization. That is a start.
All right, so what I want a leader of men. So watching some of these clips of Aaron in his defensive meeting rooms and everything else, that's the kind of guy I like. That's the way Rob Saleh was in front of the team. I do kind of like that. But I want to know who his staff is. I want to know what he's going to do in certain situations. And he's probably learned from Dan Campbell that, being aggressive is not a bad thing. And going for it on fourth down, I would imagine he's been impacted by that. But I would want to know who his offensive coordinator is. I want to know who his defense coordinator is. One of the things that I did like what he did say within the last week is that, look, man, I am a head coach. You're not just getting somebody that knows defense. I connect with people. I am a head coach, not just a defensive coach. And that's what he said, and he wanted to make that apparent to everybody. So now I want to know, okay, great. You're a leader of men. You're fantastic. In the meeting rooms, I want to know who is going to be on your staff. Who are going to be your coordinators? And by the way, do you have somebody to help you navigate the game when the game is going on and you're the leader amongst men and there's you have the ball with 1:40 to go and you got 2 timeouts and you need a field goal to win? Who's helping you manage those timeouts? Who's helping, because it feels like all these situations are the same, but they're not. Every situation, even though it appears to be the same, is different simply because of the game that you're playing in and at that moment and how your team is playing and how their team is playing, who their coach is, who their quarterback is, what's the weather like, all the different variables that you have to deal with when you are a head coach. It's not just whether or not you're playing cover 2, whether you're playing man, when you're doing fire zones and all that other stuff. That's a specific description of your job. This is what you do. When you become a head coach, it's so much more than just that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to have the ability as a head coach. And I remember talking to Coach Cowher about this, saying to your offensive coordinator, "Hey, dude, run it. We want to run the ball here. We want them to use their timeouts. You have to be able to communicate that to your offensive coordinator. If you've never, I don't know if Aaron's ever done that before. I don't know if he's ever got into it. I know he knows offense because he's got to defend offense, but does he understand? I know he knows what he has to do when he's on defense, of course. What do you do when you're on offense and you got to break down the situational football aspects of the game? That to me is always the biggest question when it comes to a first-time head coach.